Have you ever stood silently in the darkness, listening to your heartbeat thumping, and wondered, what happens when that sound stops? Death, a black curtain, a question without an answer, or perhaps, a door leading to horizons yet unknown? I still remember the first night I faced this question, a 10-year-old boy lying on a grassy field, gazing up at the star-filled sky in rural. The stars twinkled like whispers from the universe, and I wondered if something, a part of me, would continue to exist, even after this body faded away. Now, after more than 2 decades of researching quantum mechanics, I still don't have a definitive answer, but I've stumbled upon an idea that sends shivers down my spine every time I think of it: quantum immortality. Not the immortality of myths, with gods or radiant heavens, but a quiet immortality, hidden within the folds of reality. Imagine a moment, an accident, a bullet, or a storm sweeping through, your heart stops, your breath dissolves. But instead of darkness, your consciousness slips away, gently like a falling leaf, to another place, another reality, where you're still awake, still breathing, still you. I once sat in my small office, the dim light casting shadows on stacks of books about physics and philosophy, trying to picture this. The idea that you, yes, you, reading these words, might be immortal in a way no one expects. Not science fiction, but a hypothesis born from the tiniest particles in the universe, the ones that dictate the fate of everything, from distant stars to the light in your eyes. It's called quantum immortality, and today, I want to take you on a journey to explore it. Hakshin Trin Nai Esi Kong Dedang. It will lead us through the doors of quantum mechanics, where the usual rules shatter like glass under pressure. We'll wander through the dense forest of consciousness, where every step raises a new question. And we'll cast our gaze out to the universe, where galaxies spin like dances of light, concealing secrets deeper than time itself. But I promise you, when we reach the end of this road, you won't just see the world differently, you'll see yourself differently. Imagine you're standing on a cliff, the wind blowing through your hair, the ocean roaring below. Would you dare to jump? Not to seek death, but to seek answers. If you're ready, take my hand, and we'll leap together, into the darkness, into the light, and into the mysteries of quantum immortality. Let me tell you this story, not as a dry scientist, but as a traveler, someone who's spent a lifetime searching for stars that never fade. I remember the first time I heard about quantum mechanics, in an old lecture hall, the smell of damp wood wafting through the air. My professor, a man with eyes bright as if he'd glimpsed the universe's secrets, wrote a simple equation on the board. Psi, this, he said, is the wave of reality. I didn't understand it right away, but I felt it, a vibration, as if the universe were whispering to me. Today, I want to share that vibration with you. No math, no blackboard, just imagination and curiosity. Are you ready? Then let's step into that strange world where it all begins. And as we pass through this doorway, you'll find that quantum mechanics isn't like any science I've ever studied. It's not dry formulas or rigid laws. It's a realm where anything can happen, where reality bends like light through a prism. Let's start with an experiment that changed everything I thought about the universe, the double-slit experiment. I still remember the first time I conducted it in the lab, faint blue light shining through narrow slits on a metal plate. We fire tiny particles, electrons, photons, through 2 slits, and behind them is a screen that records where they land. What happens? When no one's watching, the particles spread out like waves, creating eerie, curved patterns, as if they passed through both slits at once. But when I turned on the detector, staring at them, they collapsed, becoming fixed points, like bullets fired through a single slit. I stood there, 20 years old, feeling like reality had just played a trick on me. The act of observing didn't just reveal, it changed everything. I once asked my professor, why? Why does the universe care that I'm looking? He laughed, his eyes twinkling, maybe because the universe doesn't want to give away its secrets. That was the first time I felt the power of quantum mechanics. It's not just science, but a conversation with the universe. This leads us to wave-particle duality. Imagine you toss a pebble into a lake. The ripples spread out, soft and predictable. But what if that pebble were both a wave and a particle, both spreading and still? That's how the tiniest bits of the universe behave. They don't pick a role, they're both, until you force them to decide. I used to sit by a lake, tossing pebbles and wondering if reality shifted every time I looked. Then there's superposition, a concept that kept me awake many nights. A particle can exist in multiple states at once, spinning clockwise and counterclockwise, here and there. Think of a coin hovering in midair, not heads or tails, but both. Only when you look does it pick a side. I once ran a simulation on a computer, trying to visualize this. The screen lit up with strange, curving lines, as if the universe were painting a picture of endless possibilities. But what truly blew my mind was the many worlds interpretation, proposed by Hugh Everett in 1957. I still remember the night I read his paper, in an old library, yellow light spilling onto faded pages. Everett said that every time a quantum event happens, a particle picks a state, a coin lands, the universe splits in two. One reality where the coin is heads, another where it's tails. Both exist, parallel, never meeting. I sat there, feeling like my mind had exploded. If Everett was right, reality isn't a single path, it's a giant ancient tree, with countless branches stretching out forever. Every choice, every moment, creates a new world. I walked in the rain after that night, wondering if there were other versions of me, in other branches, doing something entirely different. And from this wild idea, quantum immortality was born, a hypothesis that doesn't just challenge death, but the very meaning of life. I want you to imagine a moment you face danger. A car speeding toward you, a fire flaring up, or a storm sweeping you away. In the classical world, you might live, or you might not. But in quantum mechanics, both happen. One branch where you live, one where you don't. And quantum immortality says your consciousness, the deep you, inside, always finds the branch where you survive. I once sat in the dark, wondering if this could be real. If it is, then death isn't the final wall, it's just a fork in the road, and your path keeps going. Let me tell you a personal story. Years ago, I nearly died in a car accident. The tires skidded on a wet road, and for a split second, I saw headlights rushing toward me. My heart pounded, and then, everything stopped. I survived, but later, when I learned about quantum immortality, I wondered, was there a branch somewhere where I didn't make it? That thought chilled me, but it also felt strange, like I was part of something bigger, a web of realities where I always found the light. Quantum mechanics isn't just math or experiments, it's an invitation to see the world differently. When you realize reality isn't fixed, that it bends and branches, you start seeing everything in a new light. And from that light, we'll continue our journey, stepping into a mystery that stirs both my heart and mind, quantum immortality, where death might just be an illusion. So let's dive deeper together, through the misty paths of reality, where the line between life and death grows thin. Stop for a moment. Take a deep breath. Imagine you're at a crossroads in a deep forest, fog curling around your feet. One path leads to radiant light, where birds sing and the wind hums. The other sinks into darkness, where there's no sound, no life. You step forward, and in that instant, the universe splits. In one branch, you live, the sun warms your face. In the other, you fall, merging with the shadows. But here's what makes my heart race every time I think of it: your consciousness, the flame within, always finds the path of light. That's quantum immortality. I first heard about this idea at a physics conference, years ago. A scientist stood at the podium, his voice trembling with excitement. If the many worlds interpretation is true, he said, then death might not be what we think. I sat in the back row, my notebook full of scribbled questions, feeling like I'd been struck by lightning. Not because I feared death, but because I realized death might not be the end. Let me explain how it works, not with equations, but with a story. Imagine you're part of an experiment, something I once simulated in my lab. There's a quantum device, a tiny particle spinning in the dark. If it spins clockwise, you live. If it spins counterclockwise, a mechanism triggers, and you die. In the classical world, it's a 50-50 game of chance. But quantum mechanics says otherwise. That particle is in superposition, both clockwise and counterclockwise, until it's measured. And when it's measured, the universe splits. One branch where you live, one where you don't. Quantum immortality says your consciousness, your sense of self, the voice in your head, always experiences the branch where you survive. I once ran this simulation on a computer, watching probability curves dance across the screen. Each time, I wondered, is this real? Does a part of me live on somewhere every time I face danger? That thought was both terrifying and wondrous, like standing before a bottomless ocean, knowing you'll never reach its depths. I remember a rainy night, sitting by the window, streetlights reflecting on wet glass. I thought about the times I nearly died, the car accident, a fall while climbing, or those bouts of serious illness. If quantum immortality is true, then somewhere, there are branches where I'm not here, writing these words. But I am here. My consciousness still burns bright, like a flame leaping from dry branch to green, never going out. But this leads to a bigger question, one that's haunted me through years of research. If death is just a turn in the road, what does it mean to live? I used to walk through crowded streets, looking into the eyes of passers-by, wondering if they sense this invisible web of realities. If each of us is immortal in our own way, then why do we still suffer, still love, still struggle? Maybe because each branch is a unique story, a symphony that plays just once in our eyes. Think of a moment in your life, a time you faced danger, or a choice that changed everything. I once stood at a crossroads, leave a safe job to pursue research, or stay in my comfort zone. I chose to leap, not knowing if I'd land or fall. Looking back, I wonder, were there branches where I chose differently? Quantum immortality doesn't give us certain answers, but it offers a new perspective. Every choice is a world, and we're the storytellers of our own lives. I want to share a new angle I've explored recently. Quantum immortality isn't just about the individual. If your consciousness leaps across branches, what happens to the people you love? I once sat by a loved one's bedside, holding their hand, wondering if somewhere, they were still laughing, still alive. That idea brought tears to my eyes, but it also gave me hope. If quantum immortality is true, then no one truly leaves, they just step into another branch, where their story goes on. Quantum immortality isn't a firm promise. It's a hypothesis, a faint light in the darkness of science. But it's changed how I see the world. It's made me live bolder, love deeper, and never shy away from asking questions. And the biggest question remains, if we're immortal, what is consciousness, this invisible wind blowing through our minds, in the vastness of the universe? Let's keep journeying together, deeper into that mystery, where everything becomes hazier and more beautiful than ever. And as we step into this profound realm, ask yourself, what is consciousness? Is it the light in your eyes as you read these words? The whisper in your head as you ponder the universe? The warmth you feel when you hug someone dear? Throughout my career, I've gone from cold laboratories to heated philosophical debates, trying to understand what makes us who we are. And quantum immortality has thrust me into the heart of this mystery, like a ship lost in a boundless sea. Think of a moment you felt truly alive, a blazing sunset, a stranger's smile, or a melody that touched your heart. That's consciousness, isn't it? But where does it come from? I once sat in a lab, staring at a screen displaying brain waves, searching for answers. The lines danced across the monitor, but they said nothing about happiness, fear, or dreams. Consciousness isn't something we can hold, it's a mystery, deeper than the smallest particles in the universe. Quantum immortality made me wonder, if my consciousness can leap from branch to branch, what is it? A product of the brain, or something grander, spread across reality? I once studied a theory called orchestrated objective reduction, proposed by Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff. They suggest consciousness might stem from quantum processes in the brain, tiny microtubules in nerve cells, vibrating at a quantum level, like minuscule strings playing the music of the mind. I remember the first time I heard Penrose speak at a conference in London. He stood at the podium, silver hair catching the light, his voice brimming with passion. Consciousness, he said, might be the bridge between the quantum world and the world we see. I sat there, my notebook filled with scribbled questions, feeling like I'd touched a cosmic secret. If he's right, then every thought, every dream, is a quantum dance, a symphony of tiny particles. But there's an even bolder idea, one that chills me every time I think of it: panpsychism. Imagine you're standing by a stream, watching droplets glisten in the sunlight. In classical physics, they're just molecules, mindless, lifeless. But what if every droplet, every grain of sand, every gust of wind, carried a tiny spark of consciousness? I once walked through a forest, touching tree bark, wondering if it felt me in some way. Panpsychism says consciousness doesn't just belong to humans or animals, it's part of everything, from electrons to stars. I once read about this theory in an old library, candlelight flickering on the table. The idea that the universe isn't a cold machine, but a web of consciousness, made me feel both tiny and connected. If panpsychism is true, then quantum immortality isn't just about humans, everything in the universe might go on, in its own way. Quantum immortality takes this idea to new heights. If your consciousness leaps from branch to branch, is it an independent entity, unbound by the body? I once sat in the dark, moonlight streaming through the window, imagining consciousness as a river, flowing through countless realities, never stopping. Each branch is a new stretch of the river, but the current remains one. I want to tell you a personal story. Years ago, I lost a close friend. We used to sit together, talking about the universe, about life's mysteries. When he passed, I felt a void nothing could fill. But when I learned about quantum immortality, I started wondering, is there a branch somewhere where he's still laughing, still telling his wild stories? That thought brought comfort, like a small candle in the night. Quantum immortality isn't just science, it's a way to see the world. It makes us ask, if our consciousness never stops, how should we live? I once stood before a classroom, looking into the eyes of young students, and said, if you were immortal, what would you do differently? A girl raised her hand, her voice trembling. I'd stop being afraid. That answer stopped me cold. Maybe quantum immortality isn't about living forever, it's about living fully, right now. Think of consciousness as a flame, burning bright in the universe's darkness. Quantum immortality says that flame never goes out, it leaps from branch to branch, forever lighting new paths. But this leads us to a broader horizon, where the questions aren't just about us, but the vast universe beyond. And as we cast our eyes farther out, imagine you're standing in a field, looking up at a night sky full of stars. I still remember the first time I peered through a telescope, at a small observatory on a mountain. The stars sparkled, cosmic dust clouds stretching out like silk ribbons. But what stunned me wasn't the beauty, it was the thought that everything I saw was just one branch, one story among countless stories in the multiverse. The many worlds interpretation doesn't just apply to us, it applies to everything. Every moment, every particle in the universe creates new branches. A star explodes. One branch where it lives, one where it dies. A planet forms. Countless versions are born. I once ran simulations on a computer, trying to picture this multiverse, an endless web where every possibility exists. The screen glowed with strange, curving lines, as if I were gazing into the universe's mind. But this leads to a question that chills me: if everything happens, what's real? I once debated with colleagues over long evenings, coffee growing cold on the table. One said, it cheapens life, if every outcome exists, what do our choices matter? But I argued back, no, it makes life more precious. Each moment is a unique branch, a story that happens just once in our eyes. Imagine you're standing on a distant planet, looking up at a sky full of alien stars. Somewhere, in another branch, there's a version of you doing the same, but with a completely different tale. I used to think about this while studying cosmological models, trying to understand how galaxies form. Every Big Bang, every speck of cosmic dust, is a new branch in the multiverse's tree. And in that web, you and I are just specks of dust, but specks that can think, love, and question. I want to share a new discovery I'm exploring, the idea that the multiverse might have its own consciousness. Think about it, if consciousness is part of everything, as panpsychism suggests, then the multiverse, with its countless branches, could be a thinking, feeling entity. I once discussed this with a philosopher, who laughed and said, "Are you saying the universe is a giant brain?" I'm not sure, but that thought keeps me pondering. Quantum immortality isn't just about humans, it's about our place in the bigger picture. I once stood under a night sky, feeling like I was falling into the universe, not down, but up, into endless branches. If every moment creates a new world, then every act of ours, every smile, every tear, is a new universe. And that's what keeps me researching, keeps me questioning. If we're part of the multiverse, how should we live to make this story worth remembering? Let's move forward together, from distant stars to our lives today. And as we turn back to ourselves, ask yourself, if quantum immortality is real, it's not just a theory, it changes how we live. I once sat with a group of students, in a small classroom with sunlight streaming through the window. One asked, "If I never really die, why be afraid?" That question echoed in me. Fear of death is a huge human drive, it pushes us to build, to love, to flee. But if death is just an illusion, how would we live differently? Imagine you're facing a big decision, leaping off a cliff to save someone, or staying safe. In one branch, you live, in another, you don't. But your consciousness always finds the path where you survive. I used to think about this during tough choices in my life. It gave me courage, not to be reckless, but to believe every step matters, no matter the branch. And then there's a new angle I've explored lately, connection. If our consciousness spreads across branches, are we ever truly alone? I once looked into a loved one's eyes, wondering if somewhere, in another reality, they were still smiling at me. Quantum immortality isn't just about individuals, it's about an invisible web where every soul intertwines. I once wrote in my journal, if we're immortal, then love is immortal too, because it lives in every branch we touch. Think about how you live today. What do you fear? What do you love? I once asked a friend, if you knew you were immortal, what would you do differently? He laughed, I'd write that book I've always put off. That answer made me think. Quantum immortality isn't about living forever, it's about living fully, right now, in this branch, this moment. I want to share one last story. Years ago, I stood on a bridge, looking down at a rushing river below. I wasn't going to jump, I just wanted to feel life, its fragility. When I learned about quantum immortality, I looked back on that moment and thought, maybe I was always protected, not by fate, but by the universe itself. That thought didn't make me reckless, it made me cherish every day, every breath, every story. Quantum immortality isn't a certain promise. It's an idea, a faint light in the dark. But it's changed me. It's made me live stronger, love deeper, and never shy from questions. And I hope it does the same for you. Ask yourself, if you're immortal, how would you live? The answer might be the key to unlocking a new world, not just in the multiverse, but in your own heart. And as you ponder that, let's close this journey together, not with an end, but with an invitation to infinite horizons. So as the final light of this tale dawns, let me say goodbye from a small corner of the vast universe. As I write these last lines, moonlight slips through the window, illuminating my desk piled with papers and books. The journey through quantum mechanics, quantum immortality, and the mysteries of consciousness has brought me here, a place with no final answers, only new questions. And that's the most wonderful thing. Are you immortal? I don't know for sure. No one does. But I know this, the universe is vaster than we imagine, stranger than we dream, and more beautiful than we can describe. Quantum immortality isn't a promise, it's an invitation. An invitation to look deeper, ask more, and live fuller. I once stood under a night sky, feeling like I was falling into the universe, not down, but up, into endless branches. And I want you to feel that, the awe, the curiosity, the connection. Step outside tonight, look up at the stars, and ask, if I'm part of the multiverse, where will my story go? Maybe you'll see a star twinkle, and in that moment, you'll sense the invisible web of realities where you're never truly alone. Maybe you'll smile, knowing each branch is a chance to live, to love, to explore. This isn't an end. It's a beginning. I hope you'll keep this journey going, not just with me, but with yourself. Share this story, tell a friend, write a thought, or just whisper to yourself in the dark. Because every question you ask is a new branch, a new world, a new tale. And who knows? In the next reality branch, you might find something that makes the whole universe tremble. Thank you for walking this forest with me. Keep the flame of curiosity burning, and I hope to meet you again, in this branch or another, on our next journey into the universe's mysteries. Now, go outside, look at the sky, and let the stars guide you.